Please, I ask for your attention. They will delete this video. Watch it before it's too late.
You've been lied to about money your entire life. And the worst part, you believed it. No one ever sat you down and explained the truth. Not in school, not at home, not even in those overpriced seminars that promise to unlock your potential with nothing but a PowerPoint and a pep talk. What you were given was a script, handed to you like an inheritance, built from repetition, shame, and outdated beliefs. Go to school, get good grades, work hard, save money, retire at 65. And somewhere in that, slow spiral maybe, just maybe, you'll finally be free. But that's not how wealth works, that's not how freedom is created. And deep down, you already know this. Because if the formula you were taught really worked, the world would look very different. Most people wouldn't be drowning in debt, suffocating in jobs they hate, or secretly hoping for a miracle every time they open their bank app. No. The truth is uncomfortable, but it's simple. You are not broke because you're lazy. You are broke because you were programmed to be. Let that settle in. Because this isn't another motivational speech. This is a deep dive into the hidden architecture of wealth, into the real reasons why some people seem to attract abundance effortlessly while others grind endlessly for scraps, into the invisible patterns, psychological codes, and cultural traps that most people will never see unless someone shows them. And here's the trap. You were trained not to question the script. In fact, everything around you rewards obedience to the system. When you choose the safe path, you're applauded. When you get into debt to buy a degree, you're celebrated. When you work 40 years in a job you hate, you're told you're responsible. But when you ask uncomfortable questions, why is wealth so concentrated? Why do the rules only work for some? You're told to stop complaining, to be realistic, to be grateful. And that's how the program sustains itself, with silence, with shame, with invisible ceilings. You're not even supposed to notice. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had that moment where you see someone, maybe younger than you, maybe less educated, succeeding in ways that seem impossible under the rules you've been taught? They drive the car you dream of, live in a city you couldn't afford even on your best year, and they speak about money like it's a game, not a burden. It doesn't just make you curious, it makes you question your own story. Because if you're doing everything right and still barely keeping your head above water, what does that say about the game you're playing? Here's the truth. Most people aren't even on the board. They're pieces being moved. And until you realize that the system was never designed for you to win, only to participate, you'll keep showing up, keep working hard, and keep wondering why it's never enough. This video is about burning that script, about exposing the hidden rules behind the scenes, the ones used by people who were never meant to. Follow the plan because they wrote it. You'll learn why wealth isn't just money. It's leverage, it's knowledge, it's freedom from mental chains passed down like family heirlooms. You were taught to be a consumer, not a creator, to trade time for money, not value for income, to think in wages, not in assets. But the moment you understand the real play, the moment the curtain is pulled back, you realize something painful and powerful. You were never underpaid. You were just undervalued because you valued the wrong things. And once that clicks, you don't just want more, you demand different. You stop asking how to be rich and you start asking who benefits when you're not. Because wealth isn't a reward, it's a consequence. And the rules, they were never in your favor. And no one is coming to save you. The schools won't teach this. Your boss won't mention it. Your friends won't understand it, because most people are too busy surviving to question the map they were given. But maps are made by people who've already arrived, and most of them have no intention of showing you the way. So it's time to draw your own. Let's start with the basics. What actually is wealth? Most people think wealth is just money, a high income, a fat bank account, maybe even a house that smells like polished wood and quiet regret. But that's not wealth. That's a snapshot, a surface image of something much deeper. Wealth is control. Wealth is time. Wealth is having options when others only have obligations. And that's why the system you were born into doesn't want you to understand it. Because once you do, you stop being dependent. You stop trading your hours for their profits. You stop playing a game where the reward is a vacation once a year and a pension if you're lucky. Let's look at the real mechanics. Who are the wealthiest people you know of, publicly? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, Warren Buffett. Now look closer. Do they trade their time for money? Do they work overtime? For a paycheck? Do they worry about gas prices, monthly rent, or how they'll cover an emergency bill? Of course not, because the game they play isn't about effort. It's about structure, about access to systems that multiply value. You were taught to think like labor. They were taught to think like leverage. This is the first hidden code of wealth. The rich don't work harder. They build differently. They don't rely on their two hands. They rely on networks, assets, and intellectual property that pay them while they sleep. While you're grinding 10 hours a day, they're designing frameworks that operate without them. Now here's where it gets deeper. Most wealthy people, especially those who weren't born rich, had a moment, a click, a shift in mindset where they realized the rules they were following weren't made for builders. They were made for compliance. There's an unspoken rule passed down quietly in elite rooms. Never teach the labor class how to create cash flow. Why? Because once you lose your workforce. The system needs people who clock in, follow orders, take just enough money to survive, but not enough to leave. It needs people who fear risk more than regret, who choose security over sovereignty. And that's not by accident. It's by design. When you were a child, what were you praised for? Obedience, silence, conformity. When you colored inside the lines, stayed quiet in class, followed instructions, you were rewarded. When you challenged ideas, took shortcuts, questioned authority, you were punished. That conditioning doesn't disappear when you grow up. It becomes the voice in your head that tells you not to try, not to dream, not to deviate. And so, you settle. Not because you're incapable, but because you've been trained to believe that anything outside the script is dangerous. But here's the irony. The danger isn't outside the system. It's inside it. The real risk is wasting your one life following a path designed to keep you predictable. So let's break it down further. What makes someone rich? It's not just knowledge. There are broke geniuses everywhere. It's not luck. Although luck plays a role, it doesn't sustain. It's not privilege alone, because there are people born poor who've built empires. It's mindset, it's exposure. It's knowing how the game works and then refusing to play it like everyone else. Let's make it real. Meet Andres, a 29-year-old janitor in Bogotá. For years, he thought hard work was the key, until a co-worker introduced him to digital marketing. In 6 months, Andres launched a small brand teaching others how to clean efficiently using eco-friendly tools. That side hustle now makes more than his old job ever did. And he teaches his kids to solve problems, not just follow orders. Or take Vanessa, 41, from Lisbon, a full-time nurse drowning in shifts, never missing a day but always behind on bills. She started watching videos like this one and began documenting her knowledge online. Within a year, she turned her clinical experience into a small online course helping new nurses manage burnout. That course now pays her rent. She works less, lives better, sleeps more. And then there's Jamal, 23, from Atlanta, college dropout. Everyone told him to just get a job. He taught himself how to edit videos and offered his skills to YouTubers for free at first. One client went viral. Today, he owns a boutique editing agency with 5 employees and just hired his older brother. These aren't exceptions. They're patterns, and the only thing separating you from them is execution. So ask yourself, what do I know that solves a problem? What am I tolerating that's costing me energy? What story am I still believing that wasn't even mine to begin with? Because once you start asking different questions, you get different answers, and when you act on them, you stop surviving the system. You start building outside of it. We'll explore the psychological triggers, societal barriers, and subconscious programs that shape your relationship with wealth. But before we do that, you need to make a decision. Not tomorrow, not at the end of this video. Now. You either keep accepting the script you were handed, or you start writing your own. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay broke. You were trained to. And the first act of rebellion is awareness. The second is action. The third is never asking for permission again. And maybe the final truth is this. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is a belief you didn't choose. So let's get real. What do the wealthy actually do that others don't? It starts with something deceptively simple. They unlearn. Before they accumulate assets, before they start businesses, before they touch a stock portfolio, they break the mental model they were given. Because if you try to build wealth with a scarcity mindset, You'll sabotage it the moment it grows. That's why so many people who win the lottery go broke. That's why sudden windfalls disappear. That's why a person can double their income and still feel poor, because their internal thermostat is still set to struggle. You've probably seen it. People who say, money isn't everything, while working 60 hours a week just to make ends meet. People who believe rich equals greedy, but secretly envy the freedom wealth brings. People who reject abundance because they were taught to associate it with selfishness. That's not logic. That's programming. So let's rewrite that code. The wealthy aren't focused on looking rich, they're focused on leverage, that word again, and it's everything. There are only 4 ways to earn money. One time for money. The job route. It's where most people live. Work a set number of hours, get paid a fixed wage. Predictable, safe. Also the slowest and most taxed. 2. Skill for money. Freelancing, consulting, specialized labor. Better income potential, but still capped by hours in a day. 3. Systems for money. Creating things that make money without your daily involvement. Businesses, media, software, royalties. 4. Money for money. Investing. Making capital work for you. The wealthy focus almost exclusively on the last 2. Why? Because time is the most limited resource, and they know that freedom doesn't come from earning more. It comes from needing less and multiplying what you already control. Want an example? Look at digital products. A YouTuber with a loyal audience can make more in a month selling a course once than a professional with 2 degrees earns in a year. A writer can publish a single ebook and generate passive income for decades. An investor can place capital in the right asset and watch it double while they sleep. None of this requires fame. It requires systems. But here's the secret they don't teach you. Systems don't start with scale. They start with self-permission. Most people never get to this stage because they're waiting. Waiting for validation. Waiting for the perfect idea. Waiting until they feel ready. But the wealthy? They move first. They build in silence, they test, they fail, they adjust. They don't ask if it will work. They ask how long it will take to optimize. And while the rest of the world is consuming, they're creating. Let's talk about consumption for a moment, because this is another trap disguised as freedom. You're told you can be anything, have anything, do anything. But what that actually means is buy more, scroll more, upgrade more. You're stuck in an endless loop of dissatisfaction dressed up as ambition. Buy now, pay later. Hustle harder, rest never. The rich don't play this game. They don't chase dopamine. They chase infrastructure. While you're dreaming of a new phone, they're buying shares in the company that sells it. While you're binging the latest series, they're studying audience behavior to launch their own. Every hour you spend watching someone else's creation is an hour not spent building your own. And no, this isn't about shaming. It's about choosing. Because once you become aware of the machine, you can step outside it. You can decide that your time is an asset, not an expense. That your attention is currency, and you've been giving it away for free. The people who build wealth see the world as a chessboard. The people who stay stuck treat it like a casino. And the shift happens the moment you stop waiting to be lucky and start positioning yourself to be leveraged. Let's start with the basics. What actually is wealth? Most people think wealth is just money, a high income, a fat bank account, maybe even a house that smells like polished wood and quiet regret. But that's not wealth. That's a snapshot, a surface image of something much deeper. Wealth is control. Wealth is time. Wealth is having options when others only have obligations. And that's why the system you were born into doesn't want you to understand it. Because once you do, you stop being dependent. You stop trading your hours for their profits. You stop playing a game where the reward is a vacation once a year and a pension if you're lucky. Let's look at the real mechanics. Who are the wealthiest people you know of, publicly? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, Warren Buffett. Now look closer. Do they trade their time for money? Do they work overtime for a paycheck? Do they worry about gas prices, monthly rent, or how they'll cover an emergency bill? Of course not, because the game they play isn't about effort, it's about structure, about access to systems that multiply value. You were taught to think like labor. They were taught to think like leverage. This is the first hidden code of wealth. The rich don't work harder. They build differently. They don't rely on their 2 hands. They rely on networks, assets, and intellectual property that pay them while they sleep. While you're grinding 10 hours a day, they're designing frameworks that operate without them. Now here's where it gets deeper. Most wealthy people, especially those who weren't born rich, had a moment. A click. A shift in mindset where they realized the rules they were following weren't made for builders, they were made for compliance. There's an unspoken rule passed down quietly in elite rooms. Never teach the labor class how to create cash flow. Why? Because once you do, you lose your workforce. The system needs people who clock in, follow orders, take just enough money to survive, but not enough to leave. It needs people who fear risk more than regret, who choose security over sovereignty. And that's not by accident, it's by design. When you were a child, what were you praised for? Obedience, silence, conformity. When you colored inside the lines, stayed quiet in class, followed instructions, you were rewarded. When you challenged ideas, took shortcuts, questioned authority, you were punished. That conditioning doesn't disappear when you grow up. It becomes the voice in your head that tells you not to try, not to dream, not to deviate. And so, you settle. Not because you're incapable, but because you've been trained to believe that anything outside the script is dangerous. But here's the irony. The danger isn't outside the system. It's inside it. The real risk is wasting your one life following a path designed to keep you predictable. So let's break it down further. What makes someone rich? It's not just knowledge. There are broke geniuses everywhere. It's not luck. Although luck plays a role, it doesn't sustain. It's not privilege alone, because there are people born poor who've built empires. It's mindset, it's exposure, it's knowing how the game works, and then refusing to play it like everyone else. We'll explore the psychological triggers, societal barriers, and subconscious programs that shape your relationship with wealth. But before we do that, you need to make a decision. Not tomorrow, not at the end of this video. Now. You either keep accepting the script you were handed, or you start writing your own. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay broke, you were trained to. And the first act of rebellion is awareness. The second is action. The third is never asking for permission again. And maybe the final truth is this. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is a belief you didn't choose. Paragraph 3. Evolução narrativa com progressão. P5 view characters. $. Parágrafo 4. Testemunhos, fragmentos e quebra de padrões. 5.500 characters. Let me be clear. This is not about overnight success. Wealth building is not magic. It's math. It's not mysticism. It's psychology, habits and leverage. And the biggest enemy of all? Not lack of opportunity. It's the quiet inner voice saying, "Who do you think you are?" That voice is inherited. From parents who feared risk, from schools that celebrated obedience, from cultures that punished ambition unless it came with a degree, a title, or someone else's permission. That voice doesn't speak the language of wealth. It speaks the language of survival. And survival mode is where dreams go to die slowly, because in survival mode you don't invest, you conserve. You don't create, you imitate. You don't ask, what's possible? You ask, what's safe? But here's the raw truth. Safety is an illusion. The job you think is secure, it can be cut in a quarterly report. The pension you think will carry you, it might not even exist when you need it. The life you're building by avoiding risk may turn out to be the biggest risk of all. There are thousands of Marcuses and Laylas out there, people who snapped out of the matrix not because someone rescued them, but because they got tired of being tired, tired of asking for raises that didn't come, tired of seeing others live fully while they existed in pieces, tired of feeling like they were waiting for life to start. The most dangerous place in the world is not a battlefield. It's the comfort zone. It's where ambition is sedated by routine, where dreams get replaced by distractions, where potential is buried under binge-watching toxic jobs and conversations that go nowhere. And the wealthy, they treat comfort like a virus. They don't chase ease, they chase clarity. They don't seek permission, they create conditions. They don't wait for the right time, they manufacture momentum. Every millionaire you admire today made a choice at some point to stop blaming, to stop waiting, to stop thinking that someone else had the answers. They realized the truth. The biggest conspiracy keeping you broke isn't the economy, your boss, or your government. It's your conditioning. And the moment you break it, the moment you stop performing for approval and start building for freedom, everything changes. Here's something else no one talks about. Wealthy people don't just know how to make money, they know how to protect it, grow it, and pass it on. And they don't rely on luck to do it. They use structures, legal, financial, and social, that most people don't even know exist. Trusts, holding companies, offshore accounts, asset shelters, estate plans. Not because they're doing something illegal, but because they understand the rules. They hire advisors who know the tax code better than the IRS agents enforcing it. They don't fear complexity. They use it to their advantage. Meanwhile, the average person is trying to budget their way to freedom, cutting lattes, downloading coupon apps, comparing streaming plans to save $8 a month, and all of that might feel smart, but it's not leverage. It's survival strategy dressed up as discipline. The wealthy don't think in terms of saving pennies. They think in terms of scaling dollars. They don't say, I can't afford this. They say, how can I make this pay for itself? And the most subtle advantage? They're taught early on that money is a tool, not a scorecard. It's not about impressing others. It's about building freedom. And they pass this mindset down in everyday moments. At the dinner table, what did you create today? In car rides, if you had $10,000, how would you invest it? On vacations, what problem did this hotel solve for its customers? These are invisible lessons. No classroom, no textbook, just a different lens on life. And that lens compounds over years, over generations. While the rest of the world keeps grinding in cycles they don't even realize they're stuck in, because no one taught them how to see. But now, you're starting to see it. And that changes everything. Think about this. The average millionaire has 7 streams of income. That's not a cliché, it's a pattern. Most of those streams are built on assets, not effort. Real estate, dividends, royalties, licensing, affiliate income, courses, consulting, each one starts small. Each one scales with systems. Now contrast that with how most people live. One source of income, a single employer, a fragile chain between survival and collapse. And when that chain snaps, stress, despair, dependence, the wealthy don't accept that fragility. They diversify not just to grow, but to protect. And they teach their kids that same resilience, not in emergencies, but in expectation. They buy assets instead of lifestyle. They delay pleasure for power. They learn the rules, and then use them to build empires quietly, legally, strategically. And perhaps most importantly, they surround themselves with people who think the same. Wealth is contagious, but so is scarcity. You become what you're exposed to. Your network isn't just social. It's structural. It determines the ideas you normalize, the standards you adopt, the risks you take, the questions you're even willing to ask. That's why so many people who rise out of poverty talk about a turning point, not just a strategy, but a shift in environment. A podcast, a mentor, a book, a moment where they were pulled out of noise and into signal. You might be in that moment right now. Because this isn't just about making more money. It's about unlearning the lies. It's about refusing to be predictable. It's about becoming the kind of person who builds, not begs. And the first step to doing that is realizing you're allowed to. But let's not romanticize this. Breaking free from the old mindset is ugly. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it looks like isolation. Sometimes it feels like betrayal. When you start saying no to plans, no to people, no to the life that used to keep you safely numb. The world doesn't always cheer you on when you decide to evolve. It often resists. That's how you know you're doing something real. Most people won't understand your urgency. They'll think you're being impulsive, obsessed, reckless. That's okay. You're not building their life. You're saving your own. Because there comes a moment when pretending to be okay becomes more painful than doing something radical. And radical doesn't mean dramatic. It means honest. It means finally looking at your bank account and asking, not how to make it look better, but how to make it mean something. It means acknowledging the hidden cost of playing it safe. Every dream postponed is a tax you pay in regret. Every opportunity ignored is wealth redistributed to the ones who showed up. And maybe for the first time, you realize that discomfort isn't a problem. It's a compass. It's pointing you toward growth, toward action, toward the version of yourself that's been buried under expectations you never agreed to. You feel it, don't you? That quiet war between who you were taught to be and who you were born to become. That tension is sacred. You don't need more affirmations. You need to make a decision that this is the season where you stop living on autopilot, that you stop waiting to be ready, that you stop wondering what it would be like to be free, and start becoming someone who doesn't just dream but dares. So if you've reached the rupture, good. Now dig, now build, now move. Because wealth doesn't just reward intelligence, it rewards decisiveness, it rewards audacity. It rewards the ones who stopped performing and started producing. Let this be the line you never cross again, the moment where your past and your future shook hands and parted ways. This is where the new story begins, and it's not supposed to feel easy. Your brain is wired to avoid change, to cling to what's familiar even when it's painful. You'll question yourself. You'll want to shrink back. But remember, pressure is the birthplace of diamonds. Resistance is the birthplace of resilience. And clarity is earned, not given. You don't find your purpose by meditating in silence. You find it by moving through the noise, taking imperfect action, and discovering who you are in motion. You'll lose people. That's normal. You're not leaving them behind. You're just refusing to stand still. The people meant for the next level of your life will meet you there. The others were anchors, not wings. From this point forward, you stop asking how long it will take. You start asking how far you're willing to go. You don't just want wealth. You want the kind of peace that comes from knowing you designed a life that fits your values, your vision, your voice. And that starts now. And if you're still here, still watching, still listening, still breathing through this, let me tell you something that no algorithm can measure. Your commitment is already rare. You didn't skip. You didn't scroll. You stayed. That's not passive. That's power in motion. See, the real gatekeeper isn't money. It's attention. And you just gave yours to something most people avoid. Truth. Truth about the lies you were fed. Truth about the story you've been telling yourself. Truth about what it actually takes to unlearn decades of programming and build a new foundation from scratch. You didn't come this far to go back to sleep. You didn't invest this energy just to nod your head and go back to autopilot. You came for the rewrite. And the rewrite is brutal, because you can't become someone new without killing the parts of you that kept you safe in scarcity, the people-pleasing, the self-doubt, the modesty costume you wear to avoid intimidating small minds, the fake humility that robs you of your own genius, the unspoken agreement to shrink so others feel tall. Kill all of it. This is not about being ruthless with people. It's about being ruthless with the patterns that kept you poor. Because here's the final secret they don't want you to know. Once you shift your identity, the money follows. Not instantly, not easily, but relentlessly. Because you begin to act differently. You market differently. You speak differently. You stop hesitating. You stop apologizing. You stop trying to sell yourself to rooms that can't afford your purpose. And slowly, everything real starts to show up. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped blocking it. Energy flows where permission goes. And you just gave yourself full permission to rise. This isn't about inspiration anymore. This is about embodiment. You don't just think differently, you walk differently. You build systems around your vision. You protect your focus like a sacred ritual. You look at fear and say, I see you, and I'm going anyway. And most of all, you hold yourself like someone who's done hiding, done playing small, done outsourcing their value to validation. You are the permission slip you've been waiting for. You are the proof that the old story isn't final. You are the echo of a new generation waking up. This isn't hype. This is history in real time, so write your name into it. Burn the blueprint they gave you, and start designing from the inside out. Because the version of you who builds real wealth, they're not in the distance. They're already inside. And now they're finally awake. But don't stop there. Because the world is not changed by inspiration alone. It's changed by infrastructure, by models, by frameworks, by movements built by people who were once dismissed as dreamers. This is where you go from theory to blueprint, from fire to foundation. You start creating offers, building systems, packaging your knowledge, your story, your unique perspective into assets that work for you even when you sleep. You build not to impress. You build to liberate. Yourself first, then others. Because the final stage of wealth is not accumulation, it's multiplication of impact, of energy, of access. That's how legacies begin, not in trusts and portfolios alone, but in the moment someone like you says, "I'm done waiting," and then moves. Now we begin the construction, because if everything you've watched until now was demolition, tearing down old beliefs, outdated systems, invisible prisons, this is where you start laying bricks, carefully, intentionally, permanently. The wealthy don't just build income streams, they build identity architecture, structures around their minds, habits, assets, and time that make success inevitable, not optional. So let's get tactical. Step 1. Define your non-negotiables. Not vague goals, not fuzzy dreams, non-negotiables. What kind of day do you refuse to live anymore? What kind of people will never again have access to your energy? What kind of excuses will no longer find shelter in your schedule? Because clarity kills confusion. And confused minds don't create. They delay, they distract, they doubt. Step 2. Audit your energy. Every hour of your day is either an investment or a leak. Look at your screen time. Look at your circle. Look at your calendar. Does your daily life resemble the life of someone on a wealth path? Or is it a museum of maintenance filled with meaningless tasks that protect your comfort zone? Step 3. Design leverage. Start with one thing you know, one result you've gotten, one perspective you've lived. Package it. Turn it into something valuable, a product, a system, a service. Don't wait for perfection. Launch messy. Iterate fast. Wealth builders understand something most people don't. Iteration is evolution. You don't get it right, you get it moving. Next, protect your infrastructure. Automation is not luxury, it's leverage. Systems don't just save time, they preserve willpower. Every process you automate, emails, onboarding, payments, content, frees your mind to create, connect, and capitalize. Then comes environment. Your space is your signal. Is your desktop a battlefield? Is your bedroom a sanctuary or a screen graveyard? Is your office built for flow or filled with friction? Small adjustments compound. Energy is either elevated or eroded by design. Now relationships. The wrong people are more expensive than bad investments. Every low-vibration conversation has a cost. Every person you tolerate instead of respect is a delay disguised as loyalty. Audit ruthlessly. Proximity is programming. Next, language. Wealthy people speak differently. They don't say if, they say when. They don't say I'll try. They say I'm building. They don't say I hope. They say I've decided. Your language is not just communication, it's construction. Speak your reality into existence, but only if you're also building it with your behavior. Financial architecture. Stop thinking in terms of expenses. Think in terms of cash flow. Ask yourself every month, what asset did I build? What debt did I destroy? What system did I improve? What revenue came without effort? And finally, the most dangerous belief to kill, that you need to be the smartest, the most talented, the most charismatic. You don't. You just need to outlast your old self, outdiscipline the distractions, outdecide the people still stuck in mental loops you've already escaped, because that's how it works. The people who rise are not always the loudest. They're the ones who did the unsexy work consistently, who woke up earlier not for motivation but for mastery, who understood that wealth is not a windfall, it's a ritual, one built in silence, in solitude, in discipline. You won't always be clapped for. You won't always be understood. You won't always feel like doing the work. Do it anyway, because that's the only difference between the people you admire and the ones you forgot. Execution. This is your blueprint now. No more waiting, no more asking, just building. Brick by brick, layer by layer, decision by decision. The life you want is not above you. It's beneath your feet. You just haven't finished laying the foundation yet. So pick up the next brick. Let's go. You've come this far, further than most. That alone makes you dangerous to the system that thrives on your sleep, because now you've seen it. The script, the pattern, the lie, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. So what now? Now you move with intention. Now you stop collecting information and start converting it into action. Now you stop fantasizing about the life you want and begin engineering it in public and private. Because here's what they never tell you. Once you awaken, the world tries harder to put you back to sleep. Distractions will multiply. People around you will panic. The old you will scream for comfort. But comfort isn't coming, because comfort is the drug. Freedom is the withdrawal. You are not chasing money. You are escaping the gravity of your former identity. And that means you'll be misunderstood. You'll lose friends, you'll outgrow mentors, you'll enter rooms you don't feel ready for, and that's where you belong. Because you weren't meant to stay local. You were meant to go global, energetically, financially, intellectually. And that starts with consolidation. Take what you've learned in this video and do the one thing most people never do: implement, make the call, launch the offer, audit your time, cut the noise, publish the thing, reach out to the mentor, set the boundary, open the account, raise the price, say no, say yes, say now. There is no perfect moment. There's only right now. And if you delay, the window closes. The energy fades. The insights rot. So act, and act again. And act until action becomes identity. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you. But that's not bad news. That's liberation. You get to save. And when that happens, you don't just become wealthy. You become unshakable. You become a signal in the noise, a lighthouse for those still lost. Because legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build in the open while you're still here. So double down. Go all in. Raise the stakes on your own potential. Don't just write a business plan, write a manifesto. Don't just sell a product, build a philosophy. Don't just make money, move people. And whatever you do, never go back to the version of you that waited. Because the real you doesn't wait. The real you builds, speaks, leads. The real you doesn't beg the algorithm for attention. The real you turns clarity into conviction and conviction into momentum. Stack your systems, stack your income, stack your boundaries. And remember, clarity is your greatest asset. Discipline is your best friend. Execution is your edge. So print this message in your mind. You didn't watch this far to feel better. You watched to remember who you are. And now you remember. Let's go. This is where the echo ends and your voice begins. Because here's the truth. Everything you need to change your life already exists. Not out there, not on a shelf, not behind a paywall, but within. The question was never, is it possible? The question has always been, are you ready to become the person who can hold it? Real wealth isn't just numbers. It's the ability to live without apology, to breathe without restriction, to walk through the world with your head held high, not because of how much you've earned, but because of how much you've remembered. You remembered your value. You remembered your voice. You remembered your right to design your life without asking for permission. So let me tell you one last thing. No one was ever going to give you freedom, because freedom that's handed to you can be taken away. The kind you're building now, it's unshakable, unapologetic, unstoppable. You are no longer playing the game. You are designing the board. You are writing the rules. You are building the table and choosing who sits at it. This isn't motivation. This is memory. This is who you've always been underneath the noise. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not late. You're just early to the truth. And now it's yours to carry, to live, to pass forward. Because this isn't just about wealth. It's about power. Not power over others. Power over your time, your decisions, your path. This is how movements begin. In silence, in solitude. In the moment, one person chooses to stop performing and starts becoming. But let's not stop there, because there's one more truth no one tells you. You don't become wealthy by avoiding fear. You become wealthy by mastering it. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of letting go of who you were to make space for who you could become. And guess what? You will fail, you will be judged, you will fall short, be misunderstood, underestimated, and at times forgotten. But you won't stop, because the mission is bigger than the moments. You've built too much. You've seen too much. You've tasted too much freedom to ever go back. And you now understand something most never will. The person you were before this moment is gone. Not because they were wrong, but because they were done. This new you, they don't beg. They build, they don't shrink, they scale, they don't settle. They start revolutions in families, in futures, in financial systems. Because one awakened mind is more dangerous than 1,000 passive followers. And that's exactly what you are now, awakened. So build the system, start the project, buy the domain, hire the mentor, raise the price, start the conversation, claim the space, tell the story, own the voice. This is not your practice round. This is your real life. And from this day forward, you operate differently. Because the person who walked into this video isn't the person walking out. They were waiting. You are working. They were hoping. You are moving. They were doubting. You are deciding. This is the threshold. This is the shift. This is the moment people will point to and say, that's when everything changed. So close this video. Stand up. Look at yourself in the mirror, not to fix, but to recognize. The architect, the warrior, the liberator, the builder of generational wealth. You. The system had its shot. Now it's your turn. Build. Before you go, I want to ask you something. If even one part of this message hit you deep, if it made you pause, reflect, or see something differently, don't let it end here. Comment below, what part of this video woke you up the most? What belief are you ready to let go of? Send this to someone who needs to hear it. That friend who's stuck, that sibling who's grinding, that version of you from 6 months ago. Don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button if this resonated. It helps this message reach the people who need it most. Subscribe if you're ready to never see wealth the same way again. We go deeper every week. Raw truths, real systems, no fluff. Because the silent program ends here. And the real game, it starts with one decision. Stay awake. End.